Welcome back to the 7th grade mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about the farmer warrior. We'll begin with a quote from Henry Kissinger. If you control oil, you will control nations. Control food, and you will control people. Bill Gates is now the largest farmland owner in the United States, comprising 242,000 acres over 18 states. That's a lot of farmland. That's a lot of acreage. But Bill Gates doesn't get involved in stuff unless he has a long and deep plan for what he's going to use that money and those assets for. But see, rich people aren't really concerned with money. They control assets. They're concerned with assets and controlling assets. That's what drives them. Money is a side effect from the things that they accumulate.
But for the record, when it comes to farmland outperforms gold and silver in the long run. So people that invest in farmland, so it sounds like a good investment. But our biggest fear is with Gates in his past behaviors is what's he going to do with the food on that land? Is he going to manipulate the food? Is he going to use Monsanto? Is he going to do some old crazy shit? That's where our problem. Like I said, on the outside, just based on the numbers, farmland is an excellent investment. Over a 7-year span, it always outperforms every other commodity. But we're looking at the individual. That motherfucker is a slimy bastard. So that's the issue that we all have with it.
Well, as of September 2020, there are new farming laws that were introduced in India, and it caused massive protests because the farming industry has been privatized. Before, the government controlled the pricing of the market, and that guaranteed a minimum for farming produce. This new law allows private companies to manipulate the market in the same way that Wall Street does. And so you have this culture that is thousands of years old that has existed just fine without big tech. And
see the problem.
Hold on, brother. Hang on. And these people have existed through famines and droughts and pests and locusts, all types of calamity that you could imagine. They existed through all these things without the assistance of Bill Gates and his data mining, or Mark Zuckerberg and his data mining, or Jeff Bezos and Amazon and their attempts at data mining. Facebook was pushed out of India for that exact reason. They attempted to gather bits and bits of information from every level of food production and of the farming industry at every level. They wanted to use this data and then sell it back to the farmers so that they could then be a part of a system that pays levies and taxes for using this information, using the fertilizer and the pesticide that they introduced to the food chain. So again, these farmers have done just fine on their own for thousands of years. But the big problem is that 50% of the working population in India is on farms. And 80% of those farms, 80% of those farms are smaller than 5 acres.
Yes, this is deep. That's what I was about to say. People don't realize that how many people are employed by farms in India. They don't just feed their family, but this is a way of life for all of them. They essentially will buy from each other, and by the government doing this, the privatization, they're trying to say the centralization is good. How about this? Look what the state is doing. Look what the government's doing. They're marching people out there. People love to bring up Nazis. They're not the only bad people in the world. There's other people in history. If you pay attention, they're having parades. They're marching out their military might. They're intimidating their own people. They're trying to tell their own people back down because we've already been paid. We've been paid off, so there's nothing you can do about it. That's what they're doing. They're intimidating these little bitty people. But people don't realize that farming in India that's their main way of. They don't deal with big cities. They don't deal with big business. They ran, like you said, they ran Facebook off. They don't want that interference. But once you start buying off the government, this is the shit you get. And this is the same special interest groups that we got going on in America right now. That's what we're fighting against.
It's crazy. You mentioned the Nazis. A lot of these companies that are selling this fertilizer to use on crops in America and abroad, they have their roots in Nazi Germany. And they're not or they didn't stop making these chemicals that were used to kill people once Nazi Germany fell. They just changed the formulation. But the problem is that these chemicals are poisoning groundwater. Your groundwater is the well water, and groundwater gets into rivers and reservoirs and dams, and that becomes our drinking water.
Talk about the protests. Talk about the unrest that's going on in India right now. Because here's the point of this whole broadcast. Let's people think because you're a farmer, because you're this, you're that you're this small person that won't stand up for yourself, or that. See, unfortunately, in America, we always warn you guys, whatever they do to black people, they're going to do to everybody else. They got rid of black farmers. Back in, I don't want to give the wrong date, so please forgive me. Back in the day, the two biggest industries in the black community were insurance and farming. And that sounds corny, but the thing is,
you're talking about this is around the time. Okay, but see, you're onto something here, because this is what allowed for the creation of communities like Langston. Yes. I mean, not Langston, but Tulsa. So it was black farmer money that when people would come into town, when the farmers would bring their wives and their kids into town on the weekends to go see a movie at a black-owned cinema, or they go buy some clothes to wear to church, they would come to town. We
were
Tulsa.
Agricultural people. Yes, that was our industry. That's why I said what's going on in India is mirroring what happened here in America. So when I say the insurance companies were the next biggest business, farming and insurance, because farmers insured their crops. So you insured your crops. So say you have a drought and your whole crop is ruined, the insurance company would pay you the money. So black people took care of black people, and these black, you have there was another one in North Carolina, same situation. So what we're trying to tell you is they ran off the black farmer. They convinced us it was bad, it was dumb. They stole your land,
and they moved you to the city. They got you hooked on drugs, and they got you hooked on heroin. They got you alcoholic. You got you working in a factory.
So India needs to beware. You need to recognize what's going on over there, and it's been done. Whenever we tell you the establishment experiments on us, they do. In fact, it's so bad to where if a black person said they're a farmer, they're into country western, they're into anything like that, you make fun of them. But let's be honest, the rodeo is a black thing. Black cowboys. We talk about Bass Reeves. We talk about the Lone Ranger. We talk about all these different things in other broadcasts. You need to understand that we've always ran the land, and this is, like I said, the point I'm trying to make is you think because somebody's a farmer that they're a hayseed, they won't fight, they can't fight. But throughout history, the farmer warrior is a thing, and I remember on The View, when it's Whoopi Goldberg and the Jewish lady were talking, and she's like, it's stupid having guns and this, that, you need gun control. And somebody, the blonde haired white chick, whatever, was arguing like, no, guns stop the government, protects you. You can't stop the government. Well, funny thing is, what about Vietnam? There was a bunch of rice farmers that whipped our ass. So the whole idea that a farmer with a weapon can't protect yourself, or a common person can't protect themselves. The AK-47 was designed for the common person to use. And the same thing in Afghanistan, when the Russians came in with those big Hind helicopters, then how did these desert people fight off the Russians? The second, you get the two super. All right. Sorry. I'm sorry. I get carried away.
Slow down. All right. So you're
proceed, my brother.
Definitely on to something there. You're definitely on to something when you're talking about the farmers that are in Afghanistan that fought the Russians and Americans. That is common. Yep. And
yes, that's true. It's true.
But see, we can go even further back. Now, we're going to go back a little bit further into Russia, and we're going to talk about how Stalin created a famine in 1932, lasting until 1933, killing millions of people in major grain-producing areas of the Soviet Union. Areas that included Ukraine, the Northern Caucasus, the Volga region, and Kazakhstan, and Western Siberia. So what he did is he took the grain, he took the harvest from these farmers, and he used it to feed the people in the cities. And so therefore, everybody in those areas, he starved the people that rebelled against him.
Okay, here's another thing. I know this is a bad example, but one of our favorite comedians is Bill Burr. And he talks about how come we talk about the Nazis, but we don't talk about Stalin. Stalin killed, 65 million of his own people.
But hold on. But even in this starvation, this famine, 7 million people were killed in just that farming famine.
Yes. So they estimate with the Nazis, they might have, some people said they killed 2 million all the way up to 10 million people. So let's just say that Stalin, he's like, those are Michael Jordan numbers. That was a joke that he said, and people get offended by it. But what he's trying to tell you is how come we love to key in on these Nazis when there were other people killing their own people at higher numbers?
Because
and Stalin is one.
It's derision. It's meant to keep you away from paying attention to the real deal.
To the real deal. Look, I get it. I'm not anti-Semitic, but Jews do run the media, and so when you run the media, you can put out whatever message you want. But the fact of the matter is, Stalin killed off 35 to 65 million of his own people, and didn't give a damn.
Yeah, and for those people who missed last week's episode, who weren't listening to the Thirst Trap Industrial Complex, Stalin killed millions of children in the streets, millions of fatherless children. He murdered them in the street. That was his edict, his law that he gave to all of the captains in his army. Kill all the kids you see in the streets without parents. So this guy was a complete sociopath, ruler, dictator, murderer. But he killed 7 million people in 1932 and 1933 in a huge famine that was caused when he took away all the food. It's a similar thing that happened in the French Revolution when the Masons of the time created a fake starvation scenario where they took away all the grain. So this happened before Stalin in France. The same exact thing happened then. So
there's something that people don't understand about the farmer. The farm people are different than. I'm not calling anybody good or better or worse, but they're different.
They're hardy
people.
They're hardy people.
Yes, that's where I was going with it. These are strong people who do physical labor, and many of them are much more intelligent than you give them credit for.
And they're in the elements. See, I want to say another thing. Like, if you have ever worked outside, if you ever, swung a hammer or like worked on anything where you're outdoors all day, it creates an extra layer of like calluses on your entire body.
But the calluses on your soul too.
That's what I'm saying. It creates an exoskeleton of armor around your entire being. That's what working outside. Because people, when you're outdoors, you are directly connected to your ancestors. You cannot deny that.
Your well-being is attached to how much work you do. If you don't do enough work, you won't eat enough. If you don't do enough work, you don't have a place to stay. So what we're trying to tell you is many times people don't understand the reason they starve the people outside the city first is because those are the people.
The hardest motherfuckers.
Yes. If they come for you, that's a hard motherfucker to put down. That's a hard. We grew up in Nebraska. I remember that Nebraska football. The offensive line came from the middle of Nebraska. The running back came from Omaha, and then the quarterback would come from someplace else. But the reason the offensive line, because we had these big white boys that were farm strong, that they've been working since they would actually work the field since they were 6, 7 years old, go to school. That's what the summertime, hey, I got to go help my dad with the crops in the summer. They literally worked. So when these guys got to high school and then college, they're literally 320 pounds of muscle. They have a good work ethic. They're easily coached. And if you piss them off, they'll run your ass the fuck over.
And then they got the black motherfuckers. Hey, run this ball. These white boys can't catch you. Go.
Yeah, go. So the point we're trying to make is many of these things, when the government tries to stamp out people, they start outside the city on purpose because the chances are these are independent thinkers. These are people who can survive without the government. So they need to take out them people first, because then they come to the city, the people who are less likely to be able to take care of themselves and sustain. So like I said, when we talk about this farmer warrior thing, it's legit, and I'm sure my brother's going to talk about ninjutsu and stuff like that because that's what he's into. But you got to understand that is a respectable way of life. Also, the idea of the Second Amendment, whenever these other governments thought about coming to America, it was that Japanese emperor that said, there's a gun behind every blade of grass in America. People have thought about coming at us. They like, nah, everybody has a gun, not just the soldiers. The common little old lady has a gun. So when you live in a society like that, that makes it very difficult for you to be invaded. I know that's not what people want to put out there, and we don't need to worry about that anymore. The second somebody tells you don't need to worry about something, it's usually what you need to worry about. So, like I said, my brother, go ahead.
All right. So there's several other points in history I want to go to, and of course, Renix called it when he talked about Japan. So before we get to ninjutsu, I want to go to the island of Okinawa in southwestern Japan, in the southwestern Japanese sea of Japan. So there was an invasion, and 3,000 fighting men were sent to Japan. There were 800 samurai and 2,200 foot soldiers, and they invaded Okinawa. But they were surprised because they weren't prepared for what they encountered. They thought they would encounter
A pushover.
a pushover. What they encountered instead were a bunch of farmers. A bunch of farmers that had learned Chinese kung fu. These farmers taught their sons and some of their daughters Chinese kung fu. They modified it, and they called it Shorin-ryu in the Ryukyu Islands. And so that's where Okinawan karate comes from, is from Chinese kung fu modified by the Japanese who lived in these southern islands of Japan. So these samurai roll up on their horses and on foot and think they did about to wreck shop. Oh, buddy. They had a serious ass reckoning because these farmers were fighting with farm tools. They fought with a bow staff. They fought with the sai. Basically, all the weapons you see that the Ninja Turtles use, except for the sword, these farmers were using. All these farmers were using those weapons from the Ninja Turtles. It was the sai, which looks like a fork with another like a trident or a fork with like a little spike in the middle. You got two of those, and then you have the nunchucks, right? The nunchucks. Yep. Everybody, I don't explain what the fucking nunchucks are. All right, and then you have a kama, which is basically a stick that has a curved blade at the end, and that was used. It's a sickle. Just like the Grim Reaper has a sickle, this is a short one that the Okinawan people use to cut rice down. So these guys were going heads up against samurai using katana, and they were winning. So the samurai had to regroup and figure out how they could beat these guys because they were getting fucked up by a bunch of farmers. Enter the farmer warrior. Another example in Japanese history of farmer warriors were ninjas. There were many ninjas that were farmers because when they weren't off on a mission, they had to make a living. And so they would farm rice or they would farm buckwheat or whatever type of grain, whatever type of good that they could sell or they could raise a crop from and sell at a market. And so many of these ninjas lived double lives. Some were gardeners, some were farmers, some were traveling merchants, but the ninjas that were farmers had an extra level of intelligence because this level of ninjutsu allowed them to use nature against their opponents because they existed in nature all day growing up on farms.
This is what white folks call guerrilla warfare.
Bingo.
Whenever you hear the term,
Bingo.
Whenever you hear the term guerrilla warfare, it means that you're fighting somebody who's native, who knows the land better than you, and they're using the land to their advantage. You know, they use that's a modern term, but whenever they talk about it, it's always in historic reference. Excuse me. So what happens is you're talking about Haiti. We look at that situation where you're fighting the strongest army. The strongest armies because they beat France, England, and somebody else. That's because they knew the land. They knew the layout of the land. They waited for them. They set traps. They poisoned people. There's other ways to beat a very big opponent than just going heads up with them. Because if you're going to go against America and its might, okay, these little countries they ain't got the same kind of military we got. So what do? You fly a plane into a building. I'm not saying that's how 9/11 is. I'm simply stating the fact that when you deal with a farmer, you're dealing with that warrior who knows that land intimately.
You're fighting that person's backyard, which is what Vietnam was.
Prime example. After Vietnam was over, how many of those Vietnamese were still buried underground and didn't realize the war was over? And me and you had talked about this during World War II. On the flip side, we had the Navy frogmen. There were literally these crazy white boys that were saboteurs that hiked across China, Japan, Korea, and they didn't realize the war was over. But the people who are that close to the land, they have a different bond. And also when they fight. They're fighting for everything they have. You got a soldier who's getting paid minimum wage, basically $900 a month to fight. Then you got a guy who, hey, this is everything I got. That guy that has, I'd bet on that guy that has everything, that has everything to lose. That motherfucker, like, fuck it. My wife, kids gone. I ain't got shit to lose. So, or worse, I don't want to go back to my wife and kids. I'm gonna kill you. So, don't undercut these people. Don't take them for granted, because that's what militaries do. That's what these different situations. These people who haven't fought before, and this goes back to the whole Stalin situation. He's somebody that was in the military. He knew his adversary, so he went from a different approach. He went from the outside in. So people who know what they're doing, that's where they're going to go. Now, again, if you run up against that buzzsaw of this farmer who has 10, 15 kids, and all his kids are fighting for this is their ancestral land.
Because he's trained them. All those kids have been trained by their father and their mother.
Yes. We always laugh at the Karate Kid, the wax on, wax off. People don't understand these basic activities you do.
There you go.
They will serve you in battle.
That's right.
The discipline that you have of getting up this early, doing.
Okay. In martial arts, it's a common idea to throw a punch 1,000 times, because by the time you've thrown a punch 1,000 times, you have mastered that technique. So think about somebody who is chopping rice every day. Think about somebody who was working
10,000
repetitively
times
every day for years. That person is hella strong with those moves. Now, put that weapon in that person's hand and put you in front of that person instead of a bale of rice, and what do you think is going to happen? If you ain't trained, you about to get fucked up.
Look. When you bounce, if you ever fight like one of these Nigerians and these Kenyans, they'll chop a motherfucker. They got this big ass ashy hand. They'll chop you with that motherfucker. Don't be there when that chop comes down, because that shit right there is brutal. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's because, like you said, whatever they did before they came over here, or whatever they do in their common life, it's repetition.
You must have got chopped by one of them Nigerian motherfuckers one time.
That muscle memory is a motherfucker. That's all I can tell you. But it's the same thing. When people are trying to get their black belt, you got to do 10,000 kicks, 10,000 punches, because that repetition. But when you're a farmer, you're not training. That's just what you do. So that muscle memory is there. That grip strength is there. That we talked about this in previous broadcasts. You got muscles for show and muscles for go.
Mm-hmm.
Like my homeboy, like, man, I try to wrestle my dad, who's a mailman. Like, carrying that mail bag, that's 120 pounds every day, day in and day out. It ain't the same as you lifting weights trying to get big chest and big arms. So that motherfucker that lifts that mail bag, his uppercut ain't like yours. That mechanic, if he hits you with an elbow, his elbow, like our boy work on cars. I would let that nigga hit me for $1,000.
Dude, when I was 10 years old, when I got my first paper out, when I first started it, I was on a bike. And I was on a bike, and I would put, it had to be about a good 30 pounds on my shoulders and ride around throwing papers. Now, nobody thinks about that's a big deal until you're the person carrying that load. Because when you're riding around, and, Nebraska got hills. So you're going up hills, down hills. You know what I'm saying? And you got a 30-pound pack on you. At 10, it's work, man. It's fucking work. And so it makes you strong. You know what I mean? Like, when the younger kids start working physically, the stronger it makes them. And the more susceptible they are to endure punishment. And I'm not talking about from their parents. I'm talking about from life. Life.
How about this? People listening. Have you ever shoveled snow? Okay, regular snow is cool, but that wet snow, that wet shit, every scoop is 25 pounds.
Yeah.
25 pounds. 25 pounds.
Yes,
Like when you a kid, you want to impress your parents, so you do this shit. But there's when you get older, like say you're about 15, you'll do because you got to. Like your mom, like, hey, get out there and shovel snow. All I'm thinking about slavery, like, God damn, slavery was some cruel shit, motherfucker.
But you on point. 25 pounds, 25 pounds, 25 pounds, 25 pounds.
Like, look. Why do you think we had overseers? Why do you think it was so hard to keep slaves down? See, they don't tell you about the slave revolts or Kanye with his smart ass mouth, the ones that got away. That's because you ain't nobody fighting no slave. If I'm not fighting you, I'm having weapons and dogs and fucking lynch mobs and shit. Because if I go at you one-on-one, I'm gonna get fucked up. Like that was always a rumor in the black community. that George Washington got beat up by one of his slaves. That's why he died of pneumonia. Now, I don't know if it's true, but that's always what we heard, you know. So the bottom line is that we're telling you that these rural people are going to be much stronger than the average motherfucker that you send to fuck with them. You know, we see this shit in movies. We see this theme all the time.
I mean, because look at the Roman Empire. The legion was never allowed to stay or enter into the city until they retired from service. And so most of them, when they weren't deployed somewhere, they lived outside the city. Where? On farms. So these were farmers and they were soldiers. So you can go all over Europe and you can dig up farms in the UK, and there's Roman swords and shields underneath a lot of these farms. But they
find Roman coins all over the place.
And the same goes for the United States. There are arrowheads all over the place. All you got to do is just dig them up, especially in the Midwest.
Look, you know, this is something.
But hold on, real quick, before you get started on that. People, you know, are quick to dismiss the Native American warrior as being somebody that was just always, you know, had an animal and was grazing on food. Listen, when they were herding buffalo, they herd buffalo. That was their food source. So they would follow the buffalo. So that's a form of agrarian farming.
Agriculture,
that's husbandry. So therefore, when there was no war with the neighbors or a neighboring tribe, they're following the herd, just like the same way a goat herder controls his goats.
The sheep and the goats, yeah.
Exactly. The Native Americans controlled the bison. And so these guys, when they weren't off fighting, they're out chilling in the pasture with cows and bison and other, you know, other animals. So, again, when people...
Antelopes.
Yeah, impalas. But the deal is, man, is that, listen, okay, there's other instances in history. For example, you had when the Spanish conquistadors came to invade the Aztec Empire, there was a city surrounded by a lake. But on the outskirts of that lake was a farm. And there was plenty of farmland around the edges of that. So when these conquistadors were going into the city and they were invading, they had to fight people. They had to fight people that weren't only just in the city, but on the outside. And they had to fight some of the fiercest warriors that were outside the city that were also what? Farmers. So what we're coming into now with the fourth industrial revolution and artificial intelligence is now a time where they keep telling you that food is becoming more and more scarce.
Scarce, yes.
All right?
It's a hustle. People, first things first, you got to understand that the hustle is in. All these different diseases. Here's something I want to stick out. I'm throwing out there right now about coronavirus. There's an article in the Smithsonian magazine. It was on PBS. Egyptians used copper to kill coronavirus 3,300 years ago. Read the article. And I read this article about 3 weeks ago. We just haven't really got a chance to talk about it. And it's crazy that the Egyptians were aware of the ability for copper to kill certain diseases. Now, all of a sudden, I'm at work. I got called into work. There's an emergency today. And I get there. They have copper on the handles on the door, on the doors where you got to put your hand at. Because copper. I'm like, so if we've known how to deal with this for
you know where that came from, right?
What's that?
So Masons got a hold of the information like we got to see. Put that bullshit on the door.
And they've been keeping it from us. Look, there's so many different things to talk about when it comes to this. But what they're trying to tell you is there's a shortage on food. I'm just trying to tell people that you got to be aware of these numbers that they throw at us. There are certain numbers we can't look up. Even though when I say we can't look up, I'm not saying that you can't find the information. I'm saying we can't prove the information as an individual. So when they sit here and give you these numbers for the death of COVID, which I'm not saying is not real. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they love to throw these numbers at you and scare you. They're already talking about the new H117, which is the new bird flu in Russia. Has already got one case over here in America. They're going to keep doing this to keep you inside and scare the shit out of you.
It's not going to stop.
That's my point. It's not going to stop. Now, here's another thing with this food thing. this, like I said, on this broadcast, there's certain things I will not talk about because I don't want to give the idea to these motherfuckers. They might not be as smart as I think they are. But always, if they're telling you there's a shortage on food, there's a shortage on water, they're trading water on the Wall Street Journal now. Water is going to be a commodity they can trade. Why would we pass a law against that? How is that healthy for these people to trade water? Right now,
okay, Nestle, the Nestle Crunch Bar people, they own a large percent of the Earth's privatized fresh water.
Yes,
and they have a bottling company.
Yeah. How about this? How about they were bottling that water, not paying the people that it belonged to? So, remember, they were using public water. That was there's a big issue where Nestle.
If you guys want to understand something horrific about privatized water industry, look up Cochabamba, South America, and it will shock you. They were pushing people off of mountaintops to kill them, to keep them silent so they can get access to their water. Yeah.
Like I said, I know this conversation started out about the farmer warrior. It hasn't changed because what people
these
don't
are
understand,
all parts of it. These are all parts of the conversation.
These are all examples of how big business and government and these elitists have attacked people individually. They've gone after these people on an individual basis because if they go at them all at once, they probably lose. But if they can attack you one by one, attack your family, take your land, take your water, take your rights, take your mineral rights, take all this stuff, you'll never have any real wealth to ever be able to come up against them. You'll never be able to sustain yourself in a manner where you can actually be effective against them. And then they usher you to a city where people in the city love to think that the government can take care of them. Capitalism doesn't work. We ran out of food. Okay, so here, let me get this straight. Because of COVID, production is down. Because of COVID, people do panic buying. So now they bought up everything. Now you're saying socialism is better when people don't understand under socialism, there were more people starving. But you can't get that to these people because they don't read anything other than what they want to. They only watch the news that they want to watch. They only do the shit that they want to do that makes them feel good about themselves. And that is bullshit. The fact of the matter is that my brother that's out on a farm is still my brother. And I can learn from him. The fact that he can learn from me, the fact that she can learn from us, and all we got to get that shit down and realize that people in charge will do anything to stay in charge. They will exploit you, they will rape you, they will fuck you over, and that's the shit that we're trying to get across. And they don't want it. They will not fight the people that can beat them. They will avoid that at all costs because they are weak. That's what this shit is about. Okay. So when we bring up these stories, we're not trying to like freak you the fuck out. We're trying to make you recognize that, hey. Okay, if food is a shortage, then give me my land so I can grow my own fucking food. Let me become that farmer. Oh wait, you don't want that because then you don't need me. You don't need government. You ain't got to pay taxes. And yes, they don't want that.
Okay, so I want to circle back to what you were saying about the Egyptians and copper and its antibacterial properties. So heavy metals, including gold and silver, are antibacterial, but copper's specific atomic makeup gives it extra killing power. Copper has a free electron in its outer orbital shell of electrons that easily takes part in oxidation, reactions. So basically what it says, it has more atomic electromagnetic energy around it that kills germs.
Yeah, that valence electron will kill bacteria, kills COVID, period. This is not debatable. This is proven. And the thing is, they knew this 3,300 years ago. They knew this 5,000 years ago.
Check this out. Copper kills in other ways. When a microbe lands on copper, ions blast the pathogen like an onslaught of missiles, preventing cell respiration and punching holes in the cell membrane or viral coating and creating free radicals that accelerate and kill, especially on dry surfaces.
Look, so just so y'all notice, I'm giving y'all a heads up right now. Me and Roscoe, we have a line of masks coming out that have copper in them, and so we're gonna put these copper masks out. And you're gonna look like these Cobra officers, but your mask will really work. All these other masks are bullshit. Go ahead.
All right. So coming back to the farmer warrior, see, the whole reason why we're giving you these other instances of points in history is because history is repeating itself again. So they are slowly attempting to starve people again. 10 years ago, I was watching, I think it was the Colbert Report on TV. And they were making a joke about how food prices were going up, and there was nothing that was provoking this. There was no need for food prices to go up because the farm industry was doing just fine at the time, and so there was no shortage of food. There was no potato famine, and there was
There was
no
no reason for the market to
salmonella.
do that.
There was
Yeah,
no
the
reason
market
for the
shouldn't have
market
done
to do
that.
that. So there's this market manipulation, and because of that, you can understand why these farmers in India are flipping out and burning shit to the ground and having protests, and some of them are even committing suicide by drinking the pesticides that Monsanto have given them to put on their crops. Their entire livelihoods are being taken away because one word, globalization. But see, the problem with globalization, it's fine until you push back against it because power will eliminate all of its competition. And people they tend to forget that, like, oh, well, as long as you're a mouthpiece for globalists, then you're okay. But the moment you begin to speak out against that, then you become the competition. And so,
Here's the irony of globalization. The irony is our borders only matter when we're fighting each other, when the little guy's fighting each other. But when the big guy decides to go into a new market, then those borders don't matter. How does that work? It's because as long as they can make a profit, as long as they can keep you down, it's okay for us to step over these borders. But if I, as an individual, wants to walk into the next country, these other little individuals get mad and want to kill me in the name of some kind of patriotism. When these businesses, companies don't have patriotism, they don't care about any of us as individuals. That's the irony of that situation. Look, we're trying to give you guys a way out, and they don't want you to recognize it. They don't want you to be independent, truly independent. They don't want you to have your own water rights. They don't want you to have these things. So we need to recognize it before it gets out of hand. You need to recognize this and do something about it before it's too late.
so for those people that are still on the fence and you tend to be very conservative in your views, consider the farmers that followed George Washington into combat against the corrupt British King George III. These same farmers were told to not take action by the clergy. Their own clergy, their churches, told them to not take action and just be neutral because the fight wasn't theirs. But it was many of those people who had foresight to see that indeed they would be dominated and be under the jackboot of the British if they did not fight back.
Hey, I'm gonna give an example of just a farmer who won. Um, me and Roscoe spoke about this about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. There's a TV show we make fun of called Curse of Oak Island, and these guys are digging holes looking for this mysterious treasure. And so Roscoe calls me. I'm telling him about the show. Hey, this show is kind of fun to watch. He's like, what? And Roscoe, there's no bullshit. Roscoe goes, man, Samuel Ball got that shit back in 1930 something. Not 18. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, Samuel Ball. He's a slave. Don't you know nothing about Samuel Ball? I'm like, what the fuck? Samuel Ball was in Virginia. He was a slave that fought with the British for his freedom. So they said, hey, if you fight for us, there were slaves they were given that option. He fights with the British. He survives. And he takes his little bit of money and moves to Canada. Gets to Canada, he buys 2 plots on this little island. All of a sudden, he buys like another 13 plots on this island. So they're on this little island that supposedly have this hidden treasure. But Samuel Ball, who was a cabbage farmer, died. He was the richest guy in the area when he died. This is on the show. Watch the show, and they get real mad. Well, he mysteriously got money, or he owned this plot right here, but he wasn't given credit for discovering the money pit. So this farmer, cabbage farmer, some kind of way gets rich. The word is he found that treasure. The treasure that they're talking about, he found already. This tells you that this whole farmer thing, this whole thing that this guy, this insignificant farmer, he's not very smart. That's not true. The farmer has beat the big guy several times. We talked about Vietnam. We talked about all these different rebellions that throughout history, the smaller one has won because they cared, they united, and they used their strength. So whenever somebody tells you we need gun control because the government will never hurt you, that chick right there is not even on The View. She's Jewish. What about your people? What was the first thing Hitler did? Gun control. You know, the first thing people love to throw the Nazis out there. First thing that man did was have gun control. So you don't need guns, because the reason you don't need guns because they don't want you fighting the government. They don't want you to be able to defend yourself when they give you that edict. You can't have you can't have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of all this other stuff without the second. We've already talked about that. But these farmers get that because they live on their own, and they have to fend for themselves. They have to provide for themselves. They're not depending on the city. And so when you come to the city, the only reason you come to the city is for pussy. You're coming here to meet chicks. That's what you're here for. But because everything else you can do on your own, you know, giving you this job. Like, how about this? How come you need a degree to work at a business, but you don't need a degree to start a business? it's a fucking hustle. You got niggas getting out of jail starting businesses. But if you want me to work for your company, that's a hustle. You got to see when they fucking with you, dude. They fucking with you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's some real shit. But see, that simplistic type of thinking needs to be applied to this scenario. The reason being is, years ago, people were alarmed to hear about the invention of the Terminator seeds. When Monsanto created the Terminator seeds, this was a seed that was basically one that could not do anything beyond bearing fruit. It would bear fruit, and then that was it. And you had to keep buying these seeds every season from Monsanto. Now, the funny thing about Monsanto is that this company, at their corporate campus or campuses, they only have organic food.
Yeah, the people that work there eat real food.
And they don't eat anything that's been sprayed by Monsanto
no GMO
products. No GMO.
So when you guys are telling me how great Barack was, remember Barack signed, he gave them autonomy where they can't be sued and all this stuff. And now our boy Biden, he's already appointed that former Monsanto head he's a agriculture. What was he, the prime minister? Not prime minister. I can't think of the word. The chief of agriculture in this country. I can't think of the title. He's already appointed that guy. Monsanto is these GMOs cause cancer. They're forcing you to eat cancer food. They give you a seed that bears fruit but won't bear seeds.
Listen,
so
duct tape. It's like this. For those who want to look at this from an alternate view, you are up against multinational corporations that are concerned with profits only. And through profits, they're only concerned with control. Because by keeping control and eliminating competition, i.e. the small farmer, they then have market dominance. And they have market...
It's a monopoly. It's a monopoly.
There it is.
The other word, was it a conglomerate, which is like a monopoly, but it's only 5 people involved. It's a circle jerk of rich people.
Yes.
And we catch the cum when it falls on your head. That's disgusting, but that's what the fuck is going on.
That's the trickle down. That's the trickle down.
That's the trickle. Okay. We're not trying to alarm you, but here's the deal. What's the first thing that they teach these kids in medical school? Anytime you cure somebody, you no longer have a customer. So they teach you that in medical school. Like, if you cure them, you ain't got a customer. You talk to these medical students. The smart ones will tell you, like, yeah, my professor said something to that effect. They're telling you. So it's not about curing. Me and Roscoe had talked about this a long time ago when we talked about the side effects of these different drugs. So I'm like, they have companies that when you have the medicine man, the shaman, witch doctor, whatever you want to call him or her, they sit here and you go to the witch doctor and they say, okay, you sick? Well, you eat this plant, you eat this fruit, you mix together, and you cool. So these companies, they get that concoction, they isolate in the plant what can fix it. So if you tell me that you isolate that one chemical, why, when the witch doctor does it, there's no side effect, but then when you use it, when you use Ritalin, when you use whatever these pills are, there's a side effect. You know why? Because the side effect is not by accident. You must understand that this thing is a self-feeding thing and it's designed to keep you coming back. So when it comes to food, a lot of the stuff you put in your mouth is not food. That's the first thing that you need to understand as a smart person. You have food-like substances. The only true food that's not acidic is fruit. It falls from the tree when it's ripe. You sit there and eat that. 1930 white dude, scientist, can't think of his name. He broke it down as the only food that is guilt-free, that is not acidic, that will not make you sick is fruit. When it ripens, God drops it at your feet, you pick it up off the ground, and you eat it. It's ready to be eaten. You don't kill nobody. You don't kill no animal. You don't do this. And it was such a deep, profound thing. And when you understand that the shit you're eating, many of the stuff we do was based on before we had, how do I say, when our food was based on seasons. So in the winter season, okay, there ain't no fruit.
You're talking about macrobiotics.
Yes. So you gotta have grain, and you gotta make bread, and you gotta kill an animal or two. Well, yeah, but if you live in a tropical climate where fruit's always there, I ain't gotta kill shit.
I'm gonna tell you like this: you're not supposed to eat watermelon in January
because it doesn't grow in January.
It's not ripened in January.
When you were a kid and your dad, hey, Dad, I want some strawberries. Son, they're out of season. What?
Oh,
what do you mean
man, I used to piss me off so bad. I want some now. Well, you know what? Tough. That's life. You got to wait
out of season.
Some months.
So, but that's the problem when you deal with Monsanto. They got these seeds that go ripe when they're not supposed to. They're manipulating the genome. They're altering things. So just because you have a desire for something, that we have been conditioned not to wait. That patience is not a virtue, and that waiting is a
gratification.
Bad thing. Yes. So if I decide I want some pineapple, fine. Well, you don't understand how many little kids lost their fucking arms for that pineapple or that cocoa or that gold or this other shit.
So or that phone you got pressed to your head, or that you holding like a pizza, talking to loud as fuck, rude as fuck at the gas station in front of everybody else when we don't want to hear your fucking conversation. Put it on speaker.
Hey, here's what drives you crazy about that shit. Like, I told you one of these little liberals that I work with. He's good person. He's like, if it wasn't for China, we wouldn't have iPhone. Like, I don't need an iPhone that bad. They're fucking their people over. It's an iPhone. And I'm like, you are the main bleeding heart liberal talking about, give dogs, fucking opinions and birds know what they're doing. And when they poop on you, it's just saying crazy fucking shit. And you think it's okay to oppress some people so you can have an iPhone?
That person is participating in an echo chamber. That's all. But see, that person probably doesn't know jack shit about how to grow their own squash.
Oh, shit.
Or how to grow their own plums. Man, as a kid, I lived in paradise. I ain't lying.
I never knew I was broke. I didn't know I was poor.
Dude.
We didn't know we were poor.
No. We knew some poor motherfuckers, but we knew that our shit wasn't as bad as theirs. But listen, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, see, okay, my dad was a country boy. So therefore, when he got a house, and he put his family in that house, he put some plum trees and some peach trees in the backyard. And he made sure his wife was growing some peppermint on the side of the house. And we had pumpkins ripen in October and September. And we had all kind of stuff growing around the house. Why? Because every black person can trace their roots back to a farm.
Okay, here's the deep part that people don't understand why.
And that's foreign or domestic. Go ahead.
Hold it. Okay, so you've known me for years. I've raised dogs for years. You've been to my house literally 1,000 times. Have you ever known me to have fleas?
Never.
I've never had fleas.
Never.
So when I bought my first house, my whole house, both sides of my house had peppermint growing on the ground. It had peppermint in my flower bed. Peppermint kills fleas. So guess what happens? They come to my house. They say, "Hey, you got lead in the ground." I let them dig up everything. They dug up all my peppermint. So I get a dog from my sensei because he needs me to watch his dog for him. All of a sudden, I got a flea infestation. I can't figure out why. And then I find out
the peppermint's gone.
Kills fleas. Yeah, we've been doing shit so long we forgot why we did it. And now we abandon those things. I remember this one professor was explaining. He said, "Look, you might not know this, but dandelion root cures everything." I'm like, whatever, dude.
Man,
you crazy?
Come on, my mom would make dandelion salad, dude.
Hey, girl, Miss Harris across the street, the one that died. Remember, she would do dandelion greens.
Yes.
And people don't understand. We are told that dandelions are root. You got Monsanto giving you the spray to kill the dandelions. Why are you killing the dandelions?
Joe,
because you want your yard to get look? No, because that if you pick that dandelion and you eat that root and it cures your cancer, all of a sudden, guess what? They ain't got a customer no more.
Right.
See, they're breeding your self-reliance. By living in a city, you are reliant on certain things. And you believe what the government tells you. You believe what the media tells you. And you believe what these big companies tell you. So why do you need a degree to work for a motherfucker that don't have one? Remember Bill Gates? Because Bill Gates didn't graduate. Kanye West didn't graduate. College Dropout was his motherfucking album. I'm sorry.
No.
My nigga.
What's his name? What's his name? Didn't finish college. Mark Zuckerberg.
Bezos. Zuckerberg. So why do you need a degree to work for a motherfucker that don't have one? Because it's a fucking hustle. And until you recognize this shell game, you going to keep running on that rat race. You're going to keep going on that treadmill.
And the same goes for food.
They got you disrespecting the motherfucker that can feed you. They got you like these farmers. Hey, these farmers they're crafty motherfuckers. These farmers, they're rich. They can afford it. They're farmers. Like what? They've beat them down so much, and now you got Bill Gates entering the game. This goes back to the globalization. See, India is fighting what this motherfucker just did to us in a week. He just bought up our farmland in a week. India, they're putting up a fight.
Yeah,
we don't know.
They have that shit. They are not having that shit.
We don't have enough fucking sense to fight the motherfucking devil when he's at your goddamn door. Recognize that shit.
And they over there tearing shit up, man. They are angry.
Look, these motherfuckers. Let's wrap it up. Let me explain this to you. Copper kills coronavirus. Alcohol kills coronavirus. We could have got this shit done a minute ago. Farmland there is a lot of money in farmland if you invested it. That's true. But this motherfucker right here, he's trying to control your diet. The same motherfucker that told you 2 years ago the world was overpopulated and we need to do something about it. You want him in charge of your food. The same motherfucker that said 2 years ago the world is overpopulated, we need to do something about it. You want him giving you a vaccine? Next thing you know, your ass is sterile and you can't eat nothing. Grow your own fucking food. I don't care where you live. If you live in an apartment, grow some spices. I don't care where you live. Grow that shit. I know in Tennessee, it's crazy because a lot of people got banana plants because a banana's not a tree. A lot of people have banana plants. Literally, they bring them in the winter and they put them out and they pick their own bananas. Pick your own shit. It's just like working on your car. When you work on your own car, you know what your car can do. Like, man. Hey, man. People that work on their own shit.
You feel liberated. Like, man, I could do this myself.
I could do my own brakes. Or how about this? Like you changing brake pads, but you know what? I got a nice car, so I don't want to change the brake pads on my nice car. You take your nice car in, they take you $600. I said, fuck you. I'm taking my ass outside and changing the brakes. Right. But it's the same thing when you grow your own food. When you grow your own food and you eat it, you know where it came from. You know what kind of horse shit is in there. You know everything about it. You can trust it. In fact,
and it tastes better.
Oh, hey, growing up, I always had a tomato plant. You know this. I had like world champion tomatoes, my dude. My nigga, my tomatoes were delicious. And so here's how you know shit is different. When you eat the tomatoes from your garden and you buy your tomatoes from the grocery store, why do my tomatoes taste different? They have a little like a funky
you can
taste to them.
The sunshine in homegrown food.
But that tells you the shit they're spraying on the tomatoes ain't okay. It's not okay. Anybody who's the sound of my voice, get you a tomato plant, grow that shit, eat a couple tomatoes.
I can tell you, man. Tell me, look, bro, I can. This is the crazy part. My memory is so crazy. When you said the words "growing tomato plants,"
noticed.
I had a flashback to biting into one of those tomatoes. I had a flashback to biting into one of my mama's tomatoes and the effect that the neurochemical effect that it had on me.
You are biting into sunshine.
Biting the sun, dude.
Sunshine. Yes. So I'm telling y'all, they want you sick, and you know why they want you sick? Because they want you dependent on them. The biggest thing a pimp will do is convince the hoe that she needs that motherfucker, even though she's the one with the pussy. I'm selling your pussy for you. Well, that's what you are. You're becoming dependent on the pimp. And the pimp is Monsanto. The pimp is Facebook. The pimp is the media. The pimp is the government. These are all pimping. When you find out the government owns more of Facebook than anybody else, when you find out the government owns more of eBay and more of Amazon and Google, the government. So then if the government owns part of them, then they don't need a subpoena to go look at your motherfucking records. Now, do they? Pay the fuck attention. Wake the fuck up. And don't be woke. Fuck a goddamn hashtag. This is not about hashtag. This is about you recognizing that there's some shit going on that's not in your benefit. That's what this is about.
So there was this guy lived up until I think the late 80s. His name was Dr. John Moore. Dr. John Moore was not a medically accredited doctor. He was a root doctor. And this guy, he would have these sessions in New York City and Harlem, and they were recorded on a VHS camcorder, and they got turned into cassette tapes. And I heard them, later, much later in the 90s. And I would listen to these things spellbound because this dude was an old-fashioned, straight from the dirt floor root doctor. He would say crazy stuff. He was like, women, if you ain't got no titties, you get some wheat germ oil and you rub them on there and you get a big, strong man to pull on them titties and them titties going to grow in a week. Crazy shit like that. Now, he oversimplified the results and the mechanisms behind it, but everything he was saying was spot on. He talked about how you could gargle with myrrh and arnica to tighten up a loose tooth. Dude, this is it. I'm telling you, man, John Moore is the man. His stuff is on YouTube. Y'all can go look it up. But he would go on for an hour, and he would just talk and just drop just jewelry stores on people. Fuck dropping gems. He was dropping like diamond mines on motherfuckers, man, if you listen to this shit. And I understood this as power because he was a country boy. And
here's what people don't understand. When you realize that big farmers started with who? Henry Ford and them Edison and these guys sat
Rockefeller.
down. Rockefeller. The big farmer started with them. That where they did the campaign to convince you that if you put it in the pill form, it's better than it is in the natural form that it came in.
Okay, now here, check this out. Now, see, you're onto something there because there was this big convention right after World War II, right before the beginning of the baby boom, where all these GIs were coming back home. And all these conglomerates got together, these food manufacturers, and says, listen, we want to find a way to make big privatized farms so we can make all these foods and process them and make a bunch of money. Heinz was at this meeting. General Mills was at this meeting. ConAgra came out of this meeting. All these large food manufacturers found ways to freeze foods after preparing them and sell them to housewives so they didn't have to cook a full meal. Now, what you created from this was the TV dinner generation. There you go, duct tape. The TV dinner generation. And so you had an entire generation of people that were eating subpar foods on a little metal tray in front of their television watching the Sunday night movie on ABC. So you had all these people who were also hooked, the first generation of people who were hooked on pharmaceuticals. All these people were these housewives were taking these downers so they can take the edge off and be high and in a daze so that when their husband comes home, they don't have to deal with this shit. And all they got to do is put the TV dinner in the oven, go lay down and spread their legs and be done with it.
Hey, if you don't think it's a hustle, why is tobacco legal and marijuana not? They're both cigarettes because if you take a weed break while you're at work, you might say, fuck this job. You might start thinking. But if you smoke tobacco, it's a stimulant. Okay, I'm calm. You're not calm. You actually, if you look at your insides, you're stimulated. So you'll go in there and produce more. It's a hustle. So they're both cigarettes. Why is one okay and the other one not?
Alcohol is legal because it's a downer, right? So it puts this haze, this mud on your psyche.
It anesthetizes you to where it takes the pain away. So the pain of life, the sting is gone. You'll go to sleep. You get up the next day. You do it again.
Right.
You do it again. Look, like I said, I know when we start talking, this gets to be a stretch from what we originally talked about.
But it's all related. It's all interconnected. It's all related because you can tie all of these tangents into one thing because we began talking about the farmer warrior and how people in ancient times, when they weren't at war, they were actually growing their own food. And we are actually at war now. We are at war now. I say it all the time. We're at war on a mental, physical, and spiritual level simultaneously.
Hey, let me throw something out there
Go for it.
for these people who a lot of the shit they're doing right now politically. All they're doing right now for one reason and one reason only, because they couldn't have done it 10, 15 years ago. When you realize that most of these World War II and Korean vets are gone, they wouldn't have stood for this shit. You know, the shit that happened at the White House was some bullshit because they weren't even fighting for nothing. But that idea, the concept that they would take on the government, they were afraid of that shit a long time ago because they had motherfuckers that been to war. And people, you know, that guy out there in the street talking to himself, that Vietnam vet, that motherfucker been through some shit. Them cops don't want to fuck with that dude. You don't want that. Be glad they got the military because you don't want that nigga working next to you. There are people that wouldn't stand for the shit that's going on right now. Most of those people are dead now. They waited. Once these people started expiring, next thing you know, they're killing off any other scientist that has a difference of opinion. All this shit happened right in front of our face. Now all of a sudden, you can't look for one person to save the day. We all got to chip in to save ourselves. But ain't nobody, like I said, if you want to fix this, grow your own shit. We past time, Primal Man, we told you, take your monkey ass fishing. Go get you some shit and see where your food came from and be like, yeah, hopefully ain't no mercury in it because God knows they probably got. But the fact is this, when you supply shit for yourself, when you're self-reliant, then the government can't rule you. The government's not supposed to rule you. This nation was a government by the people for the people. All of a sudden, it's the government above us, and we think the government can take care of us. And you want the government to get, like, I get it. When shit gets bad, yeah, the government should help out. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes the shit shouldn't get bad. You should have, like right now, my mama got a freezer full of food. You know what I'm saying? She out there in Tennessee, they had all that snow.
And she got a pantry
full of food. We got a military homeboy. That motherfucker has a pantry full of food. And don't get me wrong, like I said, you don't need to be eating all that damn pasta every day. But if you had to store that shit, you know, for a rainy day, you store it. And during the week, you're eating fruit. You're cooking your own shit. You having real vegetables and shit. That's cool. But then if the shit hits the fan, like, okay, I go in there, I boil me some shit and got me some ragu, I'm cool. I'll survive the winter. So, yes, when you take care of yourself, it puts you closer to the divine because you're providing for yourself. You become divine. You're attached to what you eat. This shit is real. So that farmer, of course, he's going to fight different than that city slicker. It's just what it is.
So the farmer has many valuable things that he can teach the common person. The first is having a root cellar and storing away food. Because when tough times come around, you have to have a cache to dip into so you can have a winter to survive. So when that winter is rough and it happens to go a little bit longer than usual, you have vegetables. You have canned vegetables or preserves that you made yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
You got all types of things. You may have frozen meats for those that eat meat.
Cha-cha. People make cha-cha.
Exactly. You have noodles. You have ramen noodles. Now listen, what I recommend for everybody, whether you growing your own food or not, is to spend about $50 on a certain type of foods. Okay? Make your own peanut butter or have some type of peanut butter around because that's protein. Protein will allow you to have strength to fight for your life if you have to. If you can't eat meat or you don't eat meat, have some nut butter around. That's peanut butter, cashew butter, and have enough to last for about a month to 2 months. All right? You want to have ramen noodles because that is carbohydrates. You want to have rice and darker rice because that's complex carbohydrates. You want to have oats and grains that you can make cereals out of, that you can eat in the morning and work through the day, because you may find yourself building a dam to help your neighbors because the river is flooding or something like that. Have these basic building block foods to give you strength, not processed foods, basic foods that you can buy in bulk, like grains, like oats, like rice, like corn, like things like peanuts or almonds or cashews or pecans. These things, these basic building blocks you can take and make meals out of, that you are doing the processing, not somebody else, not some multinational conglomerate that is controlling the farmer with
It
data
just wants
points
your
and
money.
data
It
mining.
doesn't care. They don't care if you live or die.
Exactly.
They just want
Learn how to cook a lot of things. Learn how to clean fish. Straight up. Learn how to clean some fish on your own. Go catch some fish, chop the head off, and learn how to clean it. Because you're
Hey,
gonna learn about yourself.
let me tell you something. I be watching Chop, right? And if you've been broke your whole life, you grew up on Chop. When you go to the pantry, you don't know what the fuck they're gonna give you. They might give you rice. They might give you a bowling ball. They might give you all kinds of food, and you got to make that shit work. So if you've been broke and you got to go to the pantry, you live Chop. Like, oh man, this shit don't go together. They gave me some pickle relish and some motherfucking anchovies and
Shit, I know how to make that work.
You make it work. So, like I said, we're joking about that, but you also got to understand that sometimes the food they give you ain't healthy for you. So if that ain't healthy, then you got to find a way to grow your own shit. That's why I said get you a tomato plant.
All right.
Check that shit out. Stick that in your window, and you pick them tomatoes off there. Do this shit for yourself.
Let me finish my thing here. So, also, everybody doesn't have a backyard. All right, and for those of you who don't have a backyard or you want to go through the winter, what I suggest you do is go and buy yourself a grow tent. A grow tent is what a lot of people that grow marijuana use when they're growing it indoors, but you can use yours to grow food. So what you want to do is you want to get some soil and you want to mix your own soil. And you can look up all your own recipes on that online. I'm not going to go into that. Mix your own soil, get some lights, and then get some fans to circulate the air inside there. And grow a couple of simple crops inside your house. And you can have a continuous harvest of spinach inside your house. You can have a continuous harvest of tomatoes inside your house.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I'm saying this to you is because in a time of need, this is stuff that you can use to trade to other people. Okay? So farmers, when they didn't have money, they would trade stuff with one another.
Yes.
So farmers...
But pay attention, that can't be taxed. That's why you got this global shit going on, because if these farmers are trading amongst themselves... They want to
control and tax everything.
Everything.
So here's the thing. Another thing is farmers have guns. They have guns because they have to protect their their livestock and from the wildlife around them. They have to make sure wolves don't come onto their property to eat the cows, or they have to make sure that hyenas, if you're in Africa, don't come onto the property to eat whatever livestock you have there. You have to protect your livestock or your family from wild animals. Therefore, a lot of kids that grow up on farms learn how to shoot very young. A lot of people want to talk shit about them country folks, but them country folks know how to handle a weapon, okay? And they learn hella early. And there ain't nothing wrong with learning how to protect yourself, you and yours, early on. So, again, a lot of these farmers have skills, life skills, that can translate into combat skills because they're connected to nature all the time. They know the woods and the nature areas around their property. They know their neighborhood. They know their region. They know what happens when that first. They know when to expect the first frost and what the frost is going to do to the land. They know if they have to sleep outdoors overnight during that first frost, how to dress and how to prepare themselves. These people are basically living a guerrilla lifestyle on their own property. These are ways of combat. These are the ways of the warrior. But it just hasn't been packaged for you in some sleek, all black BDU tactical gear setup for you. Now, that's up to you to use your imagination to put all those pieces of the puzzle together. But what I'm talking about are simple ways of life that will extend your lifespan because you're not eating a bunch of shit food anymore. Because you know how to protect your family with a weapon now. You know how to protect your neighborhood from invaders with a weapon now. Because you know how to fire and clean your rifle or your handgun. You see? So, invaders...
You're not a mark. You're not a mark.
Invaders, foreign or domestic, will get dealt with trying to take your shit. See, because when you become somebody who produces stuff, when you produce things, when you start making things, your whole brain chemistry shifts. You're not a consumer anymore. You're somebody that produces something, right? You're part of this chain of creation now. That's where the term husbandry comes from. You're part of this chain of creation. And women, you can be part of that too. You know, the thing is that you are now somebody producing something and you're not a victim anymore. Black people, get out of this victim mentality. Get out of this whole give me this, give me that. I'm a victim bullshit, and start producing things and learn to live on your own terms. Because by starting with the food you eat and what you put inside your body, you are putting yourself and your life and your family's life on your own terms. They want to give you a vaccine now, an mRNA vaccine that has not been tested over years and years. And you're told that it has nanites and nanotechnology inside of this, and there's going to be an upgrade every year. This is firmware. This is wetware that they're developing, and they're beta testing. There's no more beta testing. They used to be, when software would come out for a computer program, they would beta test it first before they released it to the public. Nothing is beta tested anymore. They just put out apps. They call them apps now, and they put them out. Well, you got an app in your body now if you get that coronavirus vaccine. But to all my farmer warriors out there who know what's up, we ain't taking that fucking vaccine because you ain't putting your app inside me. I'm going to fuck your app up. So
don't play that shit.
All I'm saying is get hip to what's going on and take ownership for your existence and take ownership over your food. Be that farmer warrior. Peace. We out.
Holla back.